welcome to all the newcomers. This is the second week of the shiur. This is a shiur, Tanya shiur, discussing different issues of the soul, the neshama. And welcome to women that had a fuel this morning and you're back, Baruch Hashem, healthy and safe. So today we're actually going to start learning from the Tanya itself, from the books in front of you. So whether it's red or maroon or black, whatever it is, we'll actually learn from there. And Akiva, if you can get me one copy, I'd appreciate it. Also, I could do it. Oh, actually, I have a copy here. I have lessons in Tanya here. So a question was asked last week towards the end of the shiur by several women that they learned in some class. They learned that the neshama needs kind of a tikkun. The neshama needs correction, and I implied in my talk last week the neshama doesn't need correction. So we're going to deal with that towards the end of the shiur and just begin with some learning of the Tanya. What I want you to do is open to what's called the compiler's foreword, Hakdamas Hamalakit. So in this Tanya, if you have this Tanya, it would be the the fourth page. This would be the page. Okay, if you have the other ones, not the Hakdamas Hamalakit, the title page. The title page is right over here. Okay? The Kuti Amoram's title page. I want to read with you together the title page so we have an idea of what the author of Shnei Zalman of Ladi, the first Chabad Lubavitcher Rebbe, a student of the Maggid of Mezrich, what did he want with the book of Tanya? So here it is. Sefer L'Kutei Amorim. The name of this book is called L'Kutei Amorim, a collection of sayings. He's collecting sayings that he heard from his teachers, and out of modesty, of course, he doesn't say that I wrote the book. I'm just a compiler. Chelik Rishon. This section is what we call the first section. Hanikra B'Shem, that is called with the name. Hanikra B'Shem would be like saying the nickname. Another name for the book is Sefer Shel Beinanim. Thank you. A book for the average person. Now again, the word Beinanim in Hebrew, Beinanim means intermediate, right? But I like the word average. This Sefer, this holy book, thank you, Lord, this holy book is for the average person. And I think we can all say we are average people, regular people, and this book is written for us. Melukit Mipi Sfarim is a collection of statements from the mouths of books, Sfarim, plural for Sefer, and Umipi Sofrim, from the mouths of scribes, Kedoshei Elyon Nishmase Eidem. Their souls are on high, holy souls are on high. Okay, so he's telling us in this line that this book is a collection of statements that he's heard from who? From scribes, meaning his teachers, and other rabbis and scholars, and some of their writings. Meyusit. Now here's what we call in English, in marketing, Madison Avenue, marketing terms, they call this the mission statement. So what is the mission statement of the Tanya? It's this line. Meyusad comes from the word sod. Meyusad, meaning it's based on. The Tanya is based on a verse. Al HaPosik, on the verse, quote, a Posik, it's a verse in the book of Deuteronomy, in Devarim, Kikarev Eilecha Hadover Mi'oid Beficha Ubelvavcha Lasoisei. For this thing is near you. Kikarov Eilecha Hadover Mi'od. This thing is very near you. Mi'od means very near you, very close to you. Beficha, in your mouth. Vavcha in your heart, la'asosei, to act upon it. And this actually refers to what it says in the Torah, that the Torah that God gave us, the Torah is very close to us. It's not far. We don't have to climb the Empire State Building to get the Torah. The Torah is right over here. There's a problem with this verse. How is that so? I know that what's close to me is food, sleep, and everything else that I have in the material world. I feel very akin to it. It's very regular for me to gravitate on my own towards eating, sleeping, and all the other indulgences of life. And here we have an enigmatic statement in the Torah which says, no, you have it all wrong. What's really close to you is learning Torah. Really? That seems to be distant from me, and I have to study and struggle and inculcate and contemplate. I have to find ways and time to learn, appreciate to learn mitzvahs. A lot of young people are having a difficulty with doing mitzvahs. Why do I have to do mitzvahs? Am I not a good person without doing commandments? Without doing mitzvahs? So mitzvahs seem to be distant from us. And yet the Torah doesn't say that. Hikari velecho hadover mioid. Not only is it close to you, it's very close to you. So look at the next line. Levayer hated. This book, Tanya, comes to explain very well Eichu Korav Mioid, how it is that the truth is that Torah is indeed very close to us, and it comes to explain it b'derech arucha u'kitzara, in a long, short way. There are various ways of explaining this, but briefly, you can get to the Metropolitan going through a shortcut, or you can get to the Metropolitan going through a long way, right? Let's say this past Friday I led a Shabbaton in Kfar Chabad. So the driver took me through, I guess, the back roads. It seemed to be back roads. And it went very quick. On the way back, Motzei Shabbos, I asked him to go on the main road because I wanted to be more safe. So he took me on the Highway 1, and it took longer. At both times we got to Kfar Chabad, and we went from Kfar Chabad back to Beit Shemesh. But one was a longer way, one was a shorter way. There's something called Arucha Tzara, the longer way, but ultimately it's shorter. You know why it's shorter? Because you get there. Sometimes going what we call the short, long way, it's a shortcut, but there's thorns on the way, and there's schmutz, and I need not say more. It can be a shortcut, but it's unhealthy and not safe. Where you go the longer way, it takes you more time, but you'll get there. The Alter Rebbe, the words Alter Rebbe means the old Rebbe. In Chabad, during the reign of the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, Reb Menachem Mendel of Lubavitch, the first Menachem Mendel, the first Lubavitcher Menachem Mendel, the third Rebbe, also known as the Tzemach Tzedek, the way they identified the two previous ones, they called the first one, the author of this, Tanya, Reb Shnei Zalman, they called him Alter. Alter is the Yiddish word for old. Alter Rebbe, the old Rebbe. They called the second Rebbe, Reb Dov Ber, the Mittel Rebbe. Mittel means middle. And the present Rebbe at the time, they called the Rebbe, the Rebbe. So you'll hear me use the words of Shnei Zalman, or the Alter Rebbe, or the Baal HaTanya, meaning the one who wrote the Tanya. Those are interchangeable, and we mean the same person, Reb Shnei Zalman of Liadi, okay, who was born in the mid-1700s, and he passed on in 1812. And he is the father figure of the Chabad Lubavitch movement because of this book, the Tanya. This is his magnum opus, like Maimonides, Rambam has his magnum opus Yad HaChazaka. The Baal HaTanya's magnum opus is this Sefer, this book, holy book. Although he wrote other books, but this is the book that's the most known book. So let's get back. So b'derech harucha tzara, the way to attain clarity of this verse, it tells us right from the outset. That's why the title page, we're studying the title page. It's a long, short way. If you expect Shortcuts, not in this book. Not in this philosophy. This book is not a book of Musar. The Ramchal, Rabbi Chaim Dalfin wrote, let's say, Mesilas Yesharim, which you've heard of. It's much quicker. Do A, B, C, D. Be careful with anger. Be careful with alacrity. And there's place for that. Very important, but it's called Musar. It's the moral, ethical teachings of Judaism, and it's more kind of direct. That's one subject matter in Jewish scholarship. The Talmud, the Gemara, we talk about, let's say, one ox goring another ox, or what are the details of how to put up a sukkah. It's kind of also more direct. How much do you pay for damages, half or full price? What is something worth? Very direct kind of things, although it's discussed and debated in the Talmud. But pretty, clear as far as its direction. Halacha, Jewish law, is the same way. Am I allowed to do this or not allowed to do it? Chassidus, and in particular Chabad Chassidus, and when I say in particular, because there are many Hasidic groups and many Hasidic teachings, being that the Maggid of Mizrich, who was the successor to the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Israel Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, of the Hasidic movement, he had a student called the Maggid of Mizrich, Rabbi Dov Ber, that was the name, Rabbi Dov Ber, and he had disciples. The youngest one of his disciples was the Baal Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman. And he had many disciples. So today's Hasidic groups, Bel, Satmar, Bavav, Vizhnitz, Slonim, and we can name 30 of them, are all derivatives from the Maggid of Mizrich, who had students, and the students had students, and that's how kind of they attribute their Hasidic movement to one of those students. So the Baal Tanya, he is direct student of the Maggid of Mizrich. By the way, just for the record, there are very few direct students from the Maggid of Mizrich. Chernobyl, the Tversky's family, they come directly from Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, who was direct student of the Maggid. There's Karlina Stolona Hasidim, Stolen Karlin, you might have heard of them. They come from a Stolen, one of the Stolen Rebbe, who was direct student of the Maggid. But take, for example, Bobov. There's a Hasidic group called Bobov, B-O-B-O-V, or Satmar, which is maybe a more known Hungarian Hasidus. They do not have a direct link to the Maggid. They are from a student of the Maggids. Sorry, a students of the Maggid. So, what's the Derech HaRuach Tzara? I told you the example of a city, but how is that in our lives? So basically the author, until chapter 18, talks about developing a love for God. And the way to develop a love for God, you need to use your cup, your mind. We call this contemplation, or in Hebrew we call this hisbonenus, or in the modern Hebrew, hisbonenut, lehisbonen, to contemplate. In order to do that, you need data, you need information. So for example, how did God create the world? What force did God use to create the world? Was this force of God that created the world here? Or was it too powerful and had to be outside of the world, creating it from the outside in? Then we learn in the Ramban, in the Chumash Bereshis, that God created the world with something called Yesh Ma'ayin. The Bria was young ex, or in English we use the word ex nihilo. In Hebrew, Bria Yesh Ma'ayin, something from nothing. Who is this Ayin? Why is it called Ayin? And it was a creation from nothing. God is not nothing, God is everything. And we talk about these things in Hasidic, in Chabad philosophy. There are pages upon pages explaining these ideas. So, the purpose of all this study is to feel. The purpose is to feel and to do. So there is machshava, there's thoughts, seichel, intellect. There is lev, heart, and then there is action, mindset, right? So, Chabad as the Rebbe sees it in the first 17 chapters, the way to develop a love for Hashem, that you do something not just because it feels good, but because you really have developed you sensitized yourself to the point where you really love Hashem. To get to that place, you must contemplate and include the mind. Because if it's just an emotional response, it's here today and gone tomorrow. It's based on your feeling. Well, today you turned on one way, tomorrow you turned on another way. So I like him today, I don't like him tomorrow. I don't tell you in relationships, that's the breakdown of relationships. If a marriage is based on, my feelings, well, what if the feelings aren't there anymore? So you dump them? So, the same way with the Eibishter, the same way with God Almighty. Loving Hashem is much more than my feelings. So when we talk about Avas Hashem, loving Hashem, the first method that he teaches in the first 17 chapters of Tanya is a developed love, or better said, a created love. Created through my mind. By my understanding of how awesome God is, my appreciation for God is more. So what do they do in the college campuses and all around the country? They teach people values based on understanding. Depending on who your professor is, that's the result usually of what you believe to be the right way. Then in chapter 18 and 19 of the Tanya, or actually 18 through 25, he says there's another type of love for God. That's what he calls Ava Misoteris. Ava Misoteris means a latent, concealed, inherent love that every single Jew possesses. And you don't have to create it. All you have to do is reveal it. You have to reveal it. Do you mind putting that off? Thank you. You have to reveal the love. To create something is very difficult. To reveal is easier. Why? Because to reveal, you just have to remove the obscurities, the schmutz that's there. You have to blow it off, or someone else has to blow it off for you, polish it off, and then it comes out. So what happens when you're 18 or 25, and you're in college, and you're here and there, and you're just wandering, and then all of a sudden someone says to you, you're a Jew. You have a neshama. You have a Torah. Let me show you how beautiful the Torah is. Come for a Shabbos meeting. Come to the shul. Come to a class. And all of a sudden, you're there and something comes out. Something that's very deep inside of you sparks forth. It blossoms. We call that the neshama, the soul. Now what did you do here? You didn't study Torah. You didn't study Hasidus. You're just wandering. Or you're studying in university. Or you're working. What happened is that the soul that's inside you, the neshama, was woken up. It was a wake-up call. When that wake-up call comes, you wake up. That time, and when you wake up, you say, I want to be a Jew. I want to serve God. I want to know what it means to be a Jew. And you start your return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's called the revelation of the love for Hashem that's in your heart at all times. Like I told you last week, when the woman came to Lubavitcher Rebbe and said, how can you stand on your feet so many hours and you don't get tired? What did the Rebbe say? It's like I'm counting diamonds. Every Jew is a diamond, a pearl. You don't get tired from counting a diamond, a pearl, counting money in the bank. You look how many times. It's part of you. Well, how much more so when it comes to your neshama, your real self, who you really are. At that time, it's only good and healthy. So therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, I'm going to explain to you in Tanya, going back to his words, b'derech arucha u'tzara, in a long, short way. The Ezras Hashem is brought up with the help of the Almighty God. Meaning, there are two ways. I'm going to give you both options. One is called the long way, arucha. One's called the short way. So again, why is it called the long way? Because to develop a love vis-a-vis the intellect, the meditation, it takes longer. Sarah, it's shorter. It's shorter because it is who you are. So all you have to do is just reveal who you are. That's one explanation. Another explanation is that it's really one way. Why is it really one way? Because the content and the purpose of the meditative love. So we're talking about, right, for a meditative love versus an inherent love. The content of the meditative love to be constantly fueled with a love for God requires the natural self, the natural soul who we have inside to be in tune with Hashem. In other words, when the inherent love, what we call in Hebrew, ava mesuteret, the concealed love, is ignited, it keeps the intellectual love also on course. Because the intellectual love, if it's just based on intellect, like I told you earlier, when the intellect will change, the love will change. So if someday someone comes and argues or presents to you an argument about God, God forbid, in a way that seems to contradict some basic faith issues, if your love for God is only based on that, it's in trouble. Or it dwindles down and you're not as excited. Whereas the innate love, it's not based on intellect, it's who you are. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe tells over that during the Holocaust he was standing, in 1939, the bombs were, in Warsaw, the bombs were flying, and he says he was standing with Jews who weren't observant, they weren't religious, and as the bombs were coming, they said, Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel. And he asks, where did that come from? They didn't go to shul, they didn't daven, they didn't learn. Who knows how strong their faith in God was? Says the previous Rebbe, that comes from the neshama, from the soul. Because the soul is pure. The soul, the very essence of the soul believes, and that's the truth. In the work that I've done for many, many years, which includes, outreach, or what some call kiruv and things like that, I can tell you that this is emes 1,000,000%, not less, only more. It's just a matter of tapping into the neshama. That takes work. That takes being clever. That takes all kinds of, programs, of course. But once you're able to reach the neshama on its own says, I want to be a Jew and I want to be involved. So let's go back to the text. The text of the title finishes right here. And to recap, what we've learned in the text over here is that the mission statement of the Tanya is to prove to us, to show to us that Torah indeed is very close to us, closer than food and sleep and all the other material needs that we have. And he's going to do that in various ways. Now please turn to, not the beginning of the Tanya, but actually towards the end of chapter 1. And that would be, the page here. The problem is we don't have the same time, so we have to kind of play around. Not play around, I mean, you have to juggle around. Okay, it would be, hold on, I'm going to have to show it to you. Yeah, Akiva or Indian over here. Hold on. Yeah, Akiva or Indian. So what page is that? Page 10, and page 10, what line number is that? And those, who has the other ones? I want to show the other ones.
Bob.
Yeah, yes, out here, page 10. But in these, hold on, in the other one is, you gotta give me a better, there's olive. Here.
We don't have.
And the other one would be page Samach Gimel. If you have those, page Samach Gimel, Achbir Ha'inyan.
What?
Okay, I'm going to read inside and explain. Achbir Ha'inyan, to explain the matter. The matter is that he mentioned until now, in the first chapter, there are 5 categories. The Gemara says, the Talmud is 5 categories. Two grades of tzaddikim, 2 grades of Rishoyim, wicked people, and what's the 5th category is called a Beinoni, an intermediate average person. And again, we learned earlier that the purpose of this Tanya is to address who? Not the tzaddikim, not the very holy people, not the Rishoyim, not the very wicked people, but the average person. We call that Beinoni. So I need you to remember, when you come to study Tanya with me, the word Beinoni. Plural Beinoni, the intermediate person, the average person. So he says like this, Achbir Ha'inyan, to understand this, Al Pi Ma Shekosav Rabbi Chaim Dalfin, based on the writings of the student prodigy of the Arizal, the holy Ari was buried in Tzfat. His name is Rabbi Chaim Dalfin. B'Shara Kedusha, that's his book, and that's the reference. Next line. Look at the next line.
Where is this?
I'm sorry? The L'chol Ish Yisrael. You have it? The L'chol Ish Yisrael. Every single Jew. It doesn't mean Ish, not Isha. It's every person, every Jewish person. Echad Tzaddik, whether he's righteous. V'echad Rasha, whether he's wicked in his behavior. Yesh Shnei Neshamot. Has 2 souls. This is going to answer the question of next week. Has 2 souls. Wow. I thought I only had 1 soul. Well, we'll learn now in the name of this great rabbi that really we have 2 souls, 2 drives. Ukedechsiv, and as the verse says, because the Tanya, the author, wants to support this idea that's mentioned in Kabbalah. In other words, the Sefer Eitz Chaim, Rabbi Chaim Dalfin, is a book of Kabbalah. So he says, well, let's see what it says in the Torah. And he quotes the verse, Uneshamos ani osisi. Souls I make. God says, I make souls. Well, I thought God makes a soul, singular. It says plural, Uneshamos.
Where's that quote taken from?
That quote is taken from Yeshayahu 57:16.
Why can Laina make souls? All souls.
Okay, good question, but not for now. Look up the commentaries over to answer your question, but not for now. Okay. So, Shehein Shtei Nefashos. They are 2 souls, 2 nefashot. Nefesh Achas, one of these souls, Mitzad HaKlipa, it comes from what we call the klipa, the negative side. The word klipa means a husk shell, which conceals godliness. That's why we call it the klipa. The sitra achra, that's Aramaic for the other side of holiness. The first soul that he's identifying here is associated with negative energy. Vihi hamislabeshes b'dam ha'adam. This soul invests itself in the blood of man, lahachiyos haguf, to give life to the body. Uk'k'dichsiv, and as it's written, ki nefesh habosar, for the nefesh, for the soul of the flesh, badam he is in the blood. So when the Torah says ki nefesh habosar b'dami, it's referring to this first soul, the soul that animates the body, uminena, and from this soul, boys kol hamidas rois, all the negative traits, character traits that we possess, come from this soul. Me'arba yesoidus roim shabo, deriving from the 4 elements within it. Just like the physical elements of fire, air, water, and earth are the foundation of all physical entities, so too the nefesh, the soul comprised of these 4 corresponding spiritual elements, have 4 expressions. Look further. Dahainu, kas v'gaivo, anger and conceit and pride. They're associated misoid ha'esh. They emanate from what's called the element of fire, shenigma levayla, which rises upward. Fire, rises upward. When one is in anger, when one is boasting, feels up. It's displaying an upward trend. Number 2, the taivas hatayugim, appetite for pleasures, miyasoid hamayim, comes from the element of water. Why? Ki hamayim matzmichim kol minei tainu. For water promotes the growth of all kinds of pleasurable things. Nothing grows without water. So food comes ultimately from water. Number 3, v'hoilulus, frivolity, vilatzonus, and scoffing, v'hispaios, and boasting, v'dvarim b'telim, and idle talk. They emanate from miyasoid haruach, air. Like air, they lack substance. And finally, the 4th, v'yatzlus, sloth, and melancholy. They emanate from miyasoid ha'over, from the element of earth. Earth is characterized by heaviness. A person who has sloth and melancholy is heavy. He's heavy on his limbs. Okay, so this nefesh, I like to use the English word drive. Like in a computer, there's the A, B, and C drive. His name is E and F and G already. What's a drive? It's a mechanism, a system, which gives us an attitude and ultimately a behavior. This soul, this nefesh, which he says comes from what we call the klipa, the negative side, it causes us to display those tendencies of character that are not nice. Be it anger, be it boasting, be it frivolity, whatever the issues are, we associate them with this nefesh. In Hasidic writing, we call this the nefesh habahamis, or habahamit. The word bahama is animal. An animal-like drive. Not that an animal is bad, but there's an animalistic way of living life and behavior, and there's a godly way of living life. In chapter 2, give me a moment please. In chapter 2, we'll get to the godly way. But the first way is the animal drive. So, what he's saying is that when we say there are 2 souls, we mean there are 2 drives in the Jew. One drive makes you tick one way, and the other drive makes you tick the other way. Now, to answer the question and continue, later on in chapter 2, he's going to tell us about the second drive, the second neshama, which he calls Chelek Eleka Mimal Mamish, a part of God. That's a quote from Job. The verse in Job says, and Eve says, Chelek Eleka Mimal, and the Tanya adds the word Mamish, but the verse itself is Chelek Eleka Mimal, which means part, Chelek, Mimal, from above, Chelek Eleka, a divine part, Mimal, from above. That we have within ourselves a shtickle, a piece of godliness, i.e. what we call today the neshama, or in his terminology what he calls nefesh elokis, the godly soul. So we have 2. We have the nefesh habamis, the animal-like drive, and we have the nefesh elokis, the godly drive. So when you learn that the neshama needs tikkun, we mean the animal drive, the nefesh habamis. That was the question that you asked last week. When we say the neshama doesn't need any tikkun, we're talking about the nefesh elokis, the godly soul. The godly soul is perfect. The godly soul comes perfect, remains perfect. Yes, you could schlep the godly soul into places that it doesn't belong, but in essence, it does not get damaged. It gets covered up. So we understand that correction, tikkun, or what you said, I believe, used the word yerida tzorach aliyah, the descent. The soul comes down for the purpose of an ascent, right? Of becoming better. That applies to that part of us, which means the animal drive. The nefesh habamis, the animal drive, is part of us. And being that it's animal-like in nature, it gets into trouble and it causes trouble. And that needs correction. Yes?
So what I have always been taught, as I think maybe a lot of us here have, is that Hashem decides which neshamas are going to come down to earth, very simplistic, and to whom they are going to belong, and which neshama is going to go through pain, and which neshama, and which way they're going to go. When we are learning this, the concept to me has always been one neshama, and that we have the free choice to choose good and to choose bad. But you're now saying, you've turned my concept upside down, and you're telling me now there are two neshamas. But it makes more sense that there's one that has two characteristics. So why did the Hasidim, or who decided that there's now two neshamas?
Okay, you finished with the question?
Yeah.
Okay, now the answer. That's why I use the word drive. It says shtei, if you want to look into his language, he says, the first line he says, the Cholesh Yisrael, every Jew has echad tzaddik v'echad yesh shtei neshamas, and then he brings the verse, and then he says, shehein shtei nefashos. Why does it change from neshamas to nefashos? It's not just writing words. There's a reason for it, and it addresses your question. Nefesh is the Hebrew word which implies a drive. Every person, of course, has one neshama. But wait, but that one neshama has two drives in it. So when you learn, before you learn Hasidus, you're not introduced to this general concept, because you're learning just the outer part of Torah, the Talmud, which doesn't get into these details. When you start learning Hasidus, and not just Hasidus, by the way, you learn even Rambam. The Rambam uses, or Maral. This isn't a novelty of Hasidus, by the way, because you see it comes from Kabbalah, and even the Rambam alludes to it, and the Chokrim, the Jewish philosophers, already allude to it. Rabbi Nasher Yisrael of Amsterdam, he talks about it in his book that he wrote 500 years ago, before the Baal Shem Tov. And I was in Amsterdam, and I was in the museum, and I saw some writings of his, and I have his book. So, but of course, Hasidic Judaism, Hasidism, took this and formulated it and made it into Aleph, Beis, Gimel, and organized the way. But let's get to the idea itself. The idea itself is very important. That this neshama that we have has drives and has various ways of expressing itself. So we give names to these expressions so it should be clear. We call one Nefesh Elokis. We don't call it Neshama Elokis. And the second one we call Nefesh Habamis. So a Nefesh, again, I'm making now a distinction between Neshama and Nefesh. Nefesh implies the drives. Neshama implies the one. Okay? Yes, your question, Mrs. Brill.
I wanted to ask you, a baby that is born,
Yeah.
is he born only Nefesh Elokit?
A baby is born with, in fact, a baby is born with a neshama that has these two drives, and it says that the nefesh habamis is more. It's there from day one. The nefesh elokis kind of comes in for a boy at the bris or the bar mitzvah, which means it's being revealed.
Because as much as I understand, the nefesh behemet is the klipa.
It displays the klipa, correct.
Right. And the nefesh elokit is the deeper behavior, the deeper nefesh, the deeper.
I don't hear the word you're using. Which word?
Yeah. The
Deeper
second neshama.
Yeah. Well, it displays the godliness within the Jew.
The nefesh elokit is the inside.
Right. Now, this idea that we're learning here is a very important idea in a practical way. This isn't just theoretical, abstract, Kabbalistic ideas. And I'll show you how. Sometimes you see a person from the outside, and you perceive them in a certain way. And only later, when you find out, you have a whole different understanding and knowledge of the person. The same is true with in serving Hashem. And this is why this is part of Hasidism. Listen to this. There could be a person who learns and davens, who prays and studies, but is very far from God. Why? Not because they're cheating on their taxes. That's not what I'm getting at. It's because the heart is not in unison with Hashem. To develop the heart of a Jew, to be really in unison with Hashem, is much more than just learning and davening. Learning and davening are tools, instruments. If those tools don't go beyond what we call the mechanical, the robotic, when you come to the Amidah, stand up. At a certain time, go like this. At a certain time, like this. When it comes to Shema, cover your eyes. That's all halacha. It's very important. But that's mechanical and robotic. What about that when you cover your eyes, you should be so connected, you shouldn't be able to take away your hand from your eyes because you're lost in thought. That we don't talk about. We don't talk about the person who cannot remove her hand from her eyes because they're thinking about Hashem so much that they're just glued. And they have to separate themselves and come out of their meditation. Chassidus talks about it. And Chassidus says that is the purpose of prayer. That's the purpose of davening. The purpose of davening of prayer, and that's what we're studying in here in the Kollel. We have a Kollel here. We're learning in the morning about davening. The prayer, the whole purpose of davening isn't just to ask God, give me a good year, a healthy year, with parnasa and good health and tshuva and geula. That's all true, but that's very mechanical and robotic. A Jew needs to develop a feeling that without Hashem in their life, they can't go anywhere. Without Hashem in their life, their day isn't the same. That's what we want to get at. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. So when we talk about the Nefesh Habamis is very clever. The previous Rebbe calls the Nefesh Habamis the Klugen Kent. For those who know Yiddish, Klugen means smart. Klugen Kent. What does it mean, Klugen Kent? Klugen Kent, the smart aleck. The Nefesh Habamis is not going to come to you and say, Rachel, Rivka, Leah, you know what? Shabbos, this Shabbos, I want you to do a transgression, an Aveira. They know they'll be talking to a wall. You keep the Shabbos. They say, maybe on Shabbos you don't need to prepare for Shabbos with excitement. another Shabbos, big deal. You had one last week, and you have one next week, so why make a big deal about this coming Shabbos? In other words, what does the Yetzer Hara Nefesh Abamis do? It cools you off. We say in Yiddish, nicht gefährlich. Don't get so excited. That's the Nefesh Abamis. So there is Yetzer Hara. What does Yetzer Hara means? Yetzer Hara means do or don't do, black and white, robotic, mechanical, very technical Judaism. Technical Judaism. Technical Hasidism. Put on your black frock on Shabbos and your shtreimel, for those that wear a shtreimel. Make sure your payers are nice, and put on your white socks or black socks, and you're now a chassid. It's important to wear a garb that you find respectful and want to blend in, but is that the end all of your garb? Is that the purpose of wearing clothing on Shabbos? Or is Shabbos about a soul, a spirit? You know, they tell a story, the Baal Shem Tov once saw two of his students fighting and wrangling with each other. And it was on a Shabbos, and they were wearing their shtreimel. So he told them, I want you all to put your hands on each other's shoulders, close your eyes. And he said, what do you see? So he said, and at the same time, they were eating their chont. He said, what do you see? He says, I see oxen eating chont together. I'm wearing a shtreimel. I'm Hasidic. I'm all dressed up, but I'm an ox. Why am I an ox? Because I'm behaving like an ox. So the outer part of, and I'm just using, please don't quote my example. I'm just trying to make it graphic so it's clear. It's everyone in their own life. So the Nefesh Abamis, what we're learning about here, on one hand is smart, intelligent, but very tricky, very deceptive. What we need is the other drive, the innate drive, the Nefesh Elokis, the godly drive, for the godly drive to wake up the Nefesh Abamis. Only the godly drive can say, listen, I know that you're really kidding yourself. I know you're fooling yourself. And I know that you're misleading yourself. And come on, this is not the way to be. So that's why these two ideas are very, very, very important. Now let's go further. We have till 2:30, another few minutes. Next words. Ki b'Yisra v'gam midas toivos. This is a phenomenal thought. Shebeteva kol Yisrael b'toldusam. Even natural tendencies that Jews possess from birth, kemoi rachmanis u'gemilas chasadim. For example, compassion and benevolence, boys mimena, also come from the nefesh abamis, from the klipa, from the negative side. Why? Ki b'Yisrael nefesh zu de klipa, because in the case of a Jew, this soul of klipa, himi klipas noiga, is what we call klipas noga, which also contains good. Sheyesh bo gam kin toiv, which also has some good. Let me explain. You see here the light, you see some light coming through, although there's a cover, like blocking the light, but the cover is a see-through cover, relatively speaking, right? What if you put a very heavy curtain or a much thicker cover? You would see less light. The klipa, the negative energy, has various forms. Sometimes it conceals the godly soul completely, and sometimes a little bit. The difference between the two, we use the words klipat noga. Noga means translucent, see-through. Klipat noga, it's a husk, it's a shell, it conceals, but you still can see that there's something there. I don't have a clear picture of it. So what does he say over here? He says, even the good tendencies that we display, but if it's natural, it's not holy. And the message is a phenomenal message. There are people who march around with this beautiful trait, that beautiful trait, but if it's natural for them, it's not holy. It's not bad, but it's not the ultimate holiness. You know what the ultimate holiness is? Going beyond your comfort zone. Unless you're able to go beyond your comfort zone, you're not displaying nefesh elokis. You're only displaying nefesh habahamis. Yeah, sure, there is a type of animal that's only in schmutz all day. But then there's an animal that wanders and goes around and seems to make a life for itself, right? But it's still an animal. We as Jews, the Gemara says in Yevamos, the Gemara says that we biologically are Rachmanim v'gom lechasadim, merciful and benevolent. Our people, the Jewish people. But I didn't learn it. Big deal! Big deal! Well, let's say it this way. Your mother and father made you. This is who you are. Well, wonderful. Baruch Hashem. But if you don't go further and develop yourself into something special, different, then you're a product of your mother and father. It's a wonderful thing. And, parents are most wonderful. But at the same time, what did you do to enhance being born to them? That's called nefesh habamis versus nefesh elokis. You being a product of your parents is like a nefesh habamis experience. It's natural for you. So yeah, you had a great mother and a wonderful father, were raised in a wonderful home. But what are you contributing? If you don't go up the ladder and stand, you fall down. You can't just stand in the middle. You either go up or you go down. It's true this way even with the midos, with the character traits. Hasidism talks about a refined midah, a refined character. How do you come to a refined character? That you go through a transformation. What does a transformation mean? A transformation means that I'm always looking to go beyond what I did and who I am. What I did yesterday is not good enough for today. The story is told of the rabbi who comes to town and they meet someone and the person doesn't know much about the rabbi, and all of a sudden he sees people flocking towards him and they find out that he's some special person. And all of a sudden, when he finds out, he also comes running. What does that mean? That means that when you find out that you're so special because you have a nefesh elokis, you have that godly spark, that what was acceptable yesterday is not acceptable tomorrow. So here we are, a week away from Rosh Hashanah, right? I think the message is we need to know that we can't be the same as this year. As good as our year was and as good as holy as we are, we have to be above that, greater, elevated. So what you need to look at is what area in your life could you take from good and make it better. Have a good day.
But what if you feel you're doing your best, Rabbi?
Sorry? By the way, one second. The class next week is 1 o'clock, not 1:30. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, okay? And tell other people that they can look at this one to make an exception. Also, if you want to be on the WhatsApp list, we should get a paper and write down your phone number and an email so I can keep you abreast of what's going on. Yes?
Could you please give the Olam your any contact information?
Yeah, my contact information is cell number 052-601-4157, WhatsApp 347-512-1429, and emails info@RabbiDalfin, DALFIN.com. Yes?
What if we feel we are doing our best?
Not a Jewish feeling.
The best we can.
You can always do more. The thought shouldn't scare you, it should excite you.
Terrifying.
Why? Every day, try to do more and better. Why does that have to be terrifying? I find it to be very opportunistic and energized. Okay? Have a good day, everybody.